We did just get up from the governor's state of the state. He went over an awful lot, but in that state of the state, I saw very little substance on what we're going to do to turn things around. And one of the big things that I was looking for as a business person was what is he going to do for business, for the existing business, how we're going to help those existing businesses grow their business so they can hire. We did hear, about bringing industry and businesses into the state, but there's an awful lot of small businesses that are now hurting after the pandemic, and I want to see some substance on what we're going to do to help them, mainly in tax decreases. And then, right now we have a huge death rate with our drugs and fentanyl in the state of Delaware. And they're using more Narcan than ever before. What would that death rate be? It was over 500 individuals the last 2 years in a row. What would that death rate be without that? And we didn't hear anything, about controlling, the drug problem in this state.
The governor started off his entire statement by saying working together. He wants us all to work together. There's 62 people, very good leaders representing the state of Delaware. And I'm looking forward to having a year in which we really are working together, because I think we need to hold the governor to that statement. It's easy to say working together when you're there and everybody's looking, but when you really do have to work together, I think it's intriguing. Sometimes when you're in a minority, your role at that point is just to try to reduce unintended consequences. Sometimes there are very vivid unintended consequences that can be seen and modified before a bill is passed, but there's hesitation to touch the bill. So with the way we're setting up our integration between the Senate and the House GOP members, we are going to do our best to make sure we define those. But I'm going to kind of throw it to you, the people of Delaware. You empower us. For us to be successful, we need the people out there in Delaware to tell us what they want, when they want it, and how they want it. To be the vocal majority and not the vocal minority.
The first thing that stood out to me today was the governor's call for us to work together. And that's easier said than done. We have some very progressive movements that are within the General Assembly right now in the House and the Senate. And I think that those movements are ones that don't necessarily reflect the values and what most Delawareans want. As the governor said, most Delawareans want us to work together to get things done in this building. And not for one side to just ramrod their policies through when it's not in the best interest of everybody in Delaware. We want to bring families here. We want to bring professionals here to Delaware, doctors, engineers, people that will make our economy tick here in Delaware. And when they're looking at where Delaware ranks nationally in some of our education, we're not very attractive. So those individuals, those professionals are looking at other states. They're looking at maybe going to a private school here in Delaware. We need to showcase and we need to make Delaware an attractive place for these individuals to come so that we can build our workforce. I don't think there's a whole lot in the governor's state of the state that none of us, that we can disagree with. There's a lot of really good points in everything. But as Senator Hocker said, it's some of the things that he didn't say which was important. Really how to improve our educational system. Yeah, we're going to pay teachers more, we're going to attract better teachers, but how are we going to make up for the learning loss that occurred during COVID? We have children that are in our schools right now that are behind significantly. And we're not just talking about a half a year. We're talking about, months behind in where they should be in learning. That's not something you can make up quickly. That's going to take them probably their entire high school, elementary school, middle, high school careers in order to make up. We need to make sure the groundwork is there for them to do that so that when they do graduate from the high school, from our public schools here in Delaware, they're either ready to enter the workforce or get the workforce training that they need or are ready to enter higher education facilities. When it comes to his statement increasing state investments for early childhood education, I completely agree with that. Studies have shown that investment in early childhood education pays dividends down the road. One of the things that is a problem here in Delaware right now is pay disparity, the reimbursement rates between Newcastle County, Kent County, and Sussex County. Decades ago, there was significant difference in cost of living between Newcastle County and Sussex County and Kent County. Now it's not so much. but Newcastle County providers get paid more of a rate for reimbursement from the state than Sussex County providers. And that's not fair. We need to make sure that there is that pay parity all across the state. Back at the end of last year, I was in Louisville, Texas, touring the Ericsson facility. Now they make some of the high-tech units for the 5G cell phone towers. And they were telling the group that was assembled there, from groundbreaking to production on a 300,000 square foot facility, $100 million investment with 400 plus employees, 160 days. Now, my jaw dropped when I heard that. You could not get that done in Delaware in that amount of time. We need to look at the regulatory process. You know, we're looking at Ready in 6. Ready in 6 isn't going to cut it anymore. We need to be building in 6. We're seeing other states that have honed down the regulatory process. They've made significant progress in speeding things up so that when a business wants to come to their state, to their county, to their city, we're not just talking about shovel ready. We're talking about a shovel that's already in the ground before the ink is dry. That's one of the things that we need to do in Delaware as well to really, truly grow an economy.
You know, the governor did mention about how we're expected to be good stewards of your resources, of your financial commitment back to the state, in this case, your personal income tax dollars, other sales tax dollars. Well, first and foremost, I did not hear the governor mention anything about a personal income tax cut. I know Senator Hawker mentioned it, that we're looking to make the biggest investment back into you, the Delawarean. Who knows better how to spend the money that you've given back to Delaware but you, the person who we've collected it from? That's the best economic driver. That if we can put more money into your wallet, the money that you've paid in, not just through personal income tax, but an increase in alcohol taxes and cigarette tax. Lord only knows if you recently purchased a home in the last 5 years, the realty transfer tax, purchased a car, your title transfer tax went up. Those were all measures that the governor implemented in his first year. Now is the time to peel those tax increases back, again, about having more money back into your wallet. We spend over $1.6 billion of your money in regard to our public education system, and that number continues to increase. Now, it's not a never-ending pot of dollars, and we have to look at that investment of dollars. We've always advocated for you at the local level to have more flexibility with how those dollars are spent. Our antiquated unit count system into the weeds, we're only one of 5 or 6 states left out of 50 that use state funding in regard to a unit count system. It's complicated, doesn't make any sense. Give that flexibility back to the districts who can compete in order to attract the best quality teachers. Have a greater school choice. Perhaps look at ways for individuals that are coming from disadvantaged homes to have flexibility where they can attend school, whether it's looking at easier school choice, an easier process for them to access a different public school, a different charter school. Perhaps it's even using some dollars to commit back to a private institution where a lot of our colleagues have an opportunity to have their children go there. Not disparaging that, but why not have some options for other Delawareans who may not be able to afford a faith-based institution or a private institution for their school. The governor did mention, and thank God that some of our shootings have dropped, but tragically that's from an all-time high, I believe, over last year, that we need to hold individuals accountable, that in regard to gun violence, you commit a crime with a gun, you need to be held accountable. And far too many of those charges are getting dropped, that we advocate for enhanced sentencing for those individuals. Why? To keep our neighborhoods safe and secure. So you feel comfortable, whether you're in Wilmington, Dover, or Seaford, or wherever it may be, that you know that public safety and your livelihood as individuals that are doing the right things, that are looking to provide a safe and secure environment for your home, for your family, that the state is doing their part.